Is actually live. So we are live for Content Club Live this Friday at 4 o'clock. Hello, how you doing? I hope you've all had a nice productive week, that things are picking up a bit and you're starting to get back on track maybe from the last few weeks. So, you know, there's been some change, but not much change where we are. And if you're watching in the UK, you'll probably all have been discussing the confusing things that the government have been saying for the last week. However, it's Friday. We like to finish up the end of the week with Content Club and have a bit of a chat about content, social media, creating content, and a bit of marketing and that kind of stuff. So I'm going to introduce my guest shortly in a minute. If you want to stay in touch about this, if you want to get some notifications via email, because I appreciate the fact that LinkedIn's not the best platform for keeping you in the loop with these things and letting you know, you can hop on over to our website. It's remotevideoteam.com/subscribe. And you can then get, I pop out an email in the morning on Friday morning just to let people know, give them a reminder. Plus, obviously, any updates, any videos that I've put out, or YouTube videos, LinkedIn videos, that kind of thing, I'll always post them out via email as well. So if you want to stay in the loop, jump over there. I'll put a link down the bottom after this video so you can go and do that. Next week, we've got Amy Woods from Content 10X coming up. So that should be an interesting conversation. Content 10X is a company that basically repurposes video content. So I'll be talking to Amy about how you take video or any kind of content and turn it into lots of different other things. So that should be an interesting conversation. Amy's been doing really well with that over the last year or two. But coming up today, I'm going to click my button now and bring her in, is Louise Brogan from Social Bee, coming all the way, I think, from Northern Ireland. Is that right, Louise? Hello.
That's correct, yes.
How are you doing? Do you want to give us a little introduction about what you do, and then we'll crack on with talking about what we're going to talk about today, which is LinkedIn. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I am just outside Belfast in Northern Ireland, locked down with my husband, 3 kids, and actually it's completely fine. We're really lucky. We're both working and the kids are doing fine, so it's all good. I teach people how to use LinkedIn, basically. Small business owners, entrepreneurs, and a lot of professionals. I do speaking, training, one-to-one coaching, and work with corporates as well as solo people or individuals. So love it.
Brilliant. Well, that kind of works because we're on LinkedIn at the moment.
Yes.
So I'm pretty sure there'll be plenty of people who are interested in hearing what you have to say about that. Why LinkedIn? I mean, is it something? How long have you been doing that? Is it something that you've done for a while, or did you kind of shift from another place into LinkedIn? What was the sort of incentive behind it?
I started, my business is 7 years old, actually. So I'm a bit of a dinosaur nowadays. So I started out social media managing. Then I realized that I love teaching people, and I taught people how to use basically all the social media platforms. But I was an accredited trainer for Facebook and Instagram for a long time, and really focused on those areas. And then about 18 months ago, I think, I decided that, you have kind of a light bulb moment. I realized that I got more business when I spent time on LinkedIn, and I thought there's something to this here. It's harder to win business on Facebook and Instagram. It's actually much easier to win business on LinkedIn. And also a coach I was working with was like, Louise, why don't you focus on LinkedIn? So niche down, and I've been doing that for about 18 months now. So love it, really enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think LinkedIn's I can't believe that more people don't do that. If you follow some of the kind of big American marketers, you know, some of the people who write the books, the sort of, you know, the Gary V's, and well, not so much him because he's on LinkedIn now, but, you know, those kind of, you know, big American guys, and that they're always going on about, you know, Facebook and Instagram, all that kind of stuff, and not really talking about LinkedIn. And LinkedIn, for anyone who's working with businesses in a kind of B2B environment, seems like blindingly obvious that you'd want to be on LinkedIn. You know, it's like, and not only that, but I really like the community on LinkedIn because generally I find them, I don't know what you find about them, but they're more positive, they're more kind of, they're more helpful, they're more interested in seeing people succeed. There's a lot less negativity. There's no bitching and talking about politics and religion, all those different kind of touchy subjects. And it's a nice place to hang out, really, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it really is. And I was doing a podcast yesterday with somebody, and so I did a bit of research into my own stats on LinkedIn this year, and my top 5 posts this year, 3 of them were like the most popular posts I had were ones where I was celebrating, like whether I had just done a successful webinar or something good, something really positive had happened. And that's what people were the most engaged with. And yeah, I find it a very positive place. And it's funny when you see somebody kind of says, oh, I left LinkedIn because it wasn't very nice. And I'm like, well, change your network, because actually there's a lot of far more positivity on here, I think, than the other platforms.
Yeah, that's interesting. All right, well, we're already kind of leaching into the sort of like what works on LinkedIn thing, which is what we're going to talk about today. So when I spoke to you earlier in the week, we were kind of conjuring up ideas for what might be interesting to talk about. And I think one of the things you suggested, which is a really nice thing to focus around, is what's working kind of now, or what the sort of most useful types of content, or the best types of content that we can create for LinkedIn now. So it'd be really nice to kind of dig into that a little bit. Do you want to kind of kick off by telling us maybe how LinkedIn's evolved? I mean, obviously, if you've been on it for sort of 18 months, and then probably previous to that, have you seen any changes from how things have moved on from maybe a year or two? What's current?
Yes. So in 2020, there are so many new features on LinkedIn, it's almost hard to keep up with them. So if you have been polls, oh my goodness, there's so many polls on LinkedIn in the last 2 days.
I know, I got one up today, actually. I'm guilty.
So
it was exciting. I was just like,
we've got events,
events,
polls, LinkedIn Live, of course, which is still not rolled out to everybody. We've got, you can send video messages in your messenger now. You can send appointments on your messenger in LinkedIn as well now. There's the featured section in your profile, which is brand new. And like there's just so many updates and changes coming at the minute. It's a really brilliant time to be involved in, actually an interesting time as well, I think. Quite a few of the features, David, are actually old features that were taken away and revamped and brought back. When they were originally here, like 2011, 2012, I wasn't really using the platform, so I don't remember the original uses of them. But it's interesting, I think, that they've kind of gone back to look at what they had before and what they're bringing back out and testing. But they're taking stuff away too. So they've just removed the ability to access the social selling index, which was...
Oh, okay, really?
Yeah, I mean, it just disappeared yesterday.
That's a little vanity metric, wasn't it? I think I was top 1% for a while, and I plastered it all over my social media going, look at me. But whilst also being kind of aware of the fact that it didn't really mean anything. It was just a kind of a thing that LinkedIn had made up, and but it looked good for a bit,
Yeah, but I have to say, when I showed clients how to find it, they loved it. It was always a brilliant talking point in a workshop or a session. Everyone wanted to know what their number was, and then you finish working with them like after a week, and their number shot up, and they were all delighted.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
So it's gone away for free accounts. I have to say, actually, it's still there. If you've got the Navigator. But yeah, so many changes. It's really quite interesting.
Well, I suppose, of course, I mean, it was probably around about the same time that I started using LinkedIn a little bit more, was maybe the same time that you did. It was actually, that was the time that it was bought by Microsoft, wasn't it? So that shift in ownership has probably, led to a lot of those changes. And certainly that's roughly when they started using video as well, when they introduced video to the site, which has really changed, I think, the way the platform's used. So certainly a few years ago, LinkedIn used to be sort of quite stuffy sort of platform for sort of recruitment and that kind of thing, and it's becoming much more of a social network now, isn't it? It's much more kind of conversational driven through different types of content and the way we kind of communicate and kind of use it. So what do you see working now? What are the kind of ways of using those communication tools that you see that are working well for people at the moment?
I think when I see people who I see are doing really well on LinkedIn are the people who it's the content that they're providing. It's the people who are providing value to their network, whether they're doing that on regular LinkedIn Lives like you're doing, whether they're doing short videos explaining things, but people are following other people because they know if they follow that person, they're going to get value out of the content that person's providing. So what you don't want to do is just share articles written by somebody else. You want to explain why you're sharing that. Maybe starting conversations around the content that you're sharing really works. And I don't want to be negative about people at all, but a lot of mistakes that I see people making are where they literally are broadcasting out to their audience, but they're not engaging with them. They're not asking, what do you think about this? Or, have you tried this and what are you doing? Although with the polls, of course, they're asking everything now.
I'm sure we'll all get sick of them in about a week or so as well, because suddenly it's like when they said you can invite people to your company page now, and everyone's like, oh, brilliant, and it's like 1,000 invitations to company pages all of a sudden. Sometimes that's just a tone or a turn of phrase in the way you talk, isn't it? So and I was talking about this recently on a training session that I was doing, that it's teach, don't preach sort of thing, but actually what you're saying there is more not even teaching, it's more about just kind of striking up a conversation, like, what do you think? Sometimes I see people doing that well, and sometimes I see people doing that not so well. Like, you can actually kind of I suppose raise a question rather than just at the beginning going, do you know how to, do marketing online, ? Because that somehow seems a little bit forced, that kind of leading with that kind of question, doesn't it? So there's a subtlety, or maybe to the tone that you approach that. Would you agree with that?
Definitely. So you can definitely spot the formulaic posts where someone has been taught, here's how to engage on LinkedIn, follow this formula. And if you're new, if you see those posts for the first time, yes, they are interesting and engaging, but when you've been on the platform for 6 months and it's the same format every time, it just gets quite tired. So what I suppose the most engaged posts that I have had in terms of comments around, aside from the wins or celebrating things, are the ones where, so I have a podcast called Linking In with Louise, and I go to my network every now and again and I say, okay, I'm creating a podcast next week about how to decide who you should include in your network, or how to make connection requests in your network. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. And people love to give their opinion on stuff. But like in a genuine way, I see LinkedIn as the online equivalent of going to a business networking event. You go in, you see who's around, you say hi to the person over there, you walk up to somebody and you start having a conversation with them about whatever it is that they're talking about, and being interested in them. You don't go over to somebody, straight up somebody, hello, I'm Louise. I teach people how to LinkedIn. Use LinkedIn? Would you like to work with me? No.
Yes.
Treat it literally like a business networking event that you go to in real life, and you will find that you really enjoy it as well. That's the other thing.
Absolutely, yeah. So I suppose, what you need is a poll, really, isn't it, to try and figure out what people want. But absolutely. And I think, I suppose that's an interesting thing as well. That, okay, so if you're thinking about the tone of the way you write a post or present a video, that if you think about it as a conversation at a networking event, like, did you realize you can do this and this and this, and try and remove, because you wouldn't patronize someone in that place, would you? There'd be a way of kind of presenting an idea that wasn't patronizing. So I suppose if you can kind of borrow that and use that kind of tone, I suppose that's maybe the way forward. It's
interesting, David, about video. So I have applied for LinkedIn Live. I applied before, like when it first came out, and I don't know what happened to my application. It seemed to have fallen off a cliff. And because I was coming on today, I thought I must send the application form in again. So I've applied. And the first thing they emailed me about was, they said, well, while you're waiting to see if we approve your application, continue to provide valuable video content on your LinkedIn feed. And I thought, well, that's interesting. So they're really encouraging use of video on the platform at the minute, which is great.
Yes. Okay. And I mean, that's, Zuckerberg said almost exactly the same thing. So, I mean, it's just one of those things that I think a lot of them recognize as making the platform more conversational and sort of and more human, I suppose, as well, isn't it? They're trying to make it a virtual environment for people, essentially. So video is one thing. LinkedIn Live obviously is a different version of that. What other kinds of content and posts are you seeing that work at the minute? Is tech, do you see, because there was a while where people were doing a lot of inspirational images and photographs and things. I don't see so much of those anymore, but then I know as well that people have a lot of success with text posts because some people just don't watch video and they don't want to watch video as well. So I think it's worth always having a bit of a mix in your palette, isn't it, of different types of content?
Yes. So I think it's definitely worth checking your metrics to see what's worked best for you. And if I looked at so I use a third-party piece of software called Shield. Not sure if you're aware of it, Shield app.
Yeah.
And the text-only posts do, aside from the good news posts, the text-only posts get so much more engagement than any other form of post that I put on LinkedIn. So writing, and it's how you format that post as well. So by writing 3 or 4 lines rather than just one line, it triggers the whole see more, where someone has to click on see more to see what else you've written in your post. I like to include emojis in my text post because just visually it attracts people's attention, but writing it in a way that's lots of white space as well. So in my university days, I did a master's in computing, and one of the things that I did was human-computer interaction, and the human brain does not like to see a big block of text. So breaking up your post into short 2-line paragraphs with white space in between is much easier for your reader to actually read and consume what you're saying. And then adding in those little flashes of emojis, and it can be like little green ticks or little red pinpoints. Doesn't have to be like the emoji characters. Really works. And then also having 3 hashtags in your post. No more and no less than 3 hashtags.
Okay, that's the rule. That's it. No, it has to be 3.
I mean, it's tried and tested. It's what works. Don't ask me why.
No, okay.
Let's take it.
And tell me, can you do the emojis and things on desktop? Because I know you can do them on mobile. And I think the last time I looked at trying to do something on desktop there, I couldn't find them, or maybe they've introduced them now. I don't know. But is that something you can do on both?
So I have a Mac, and I use the Mac shortcuts to bring up the emoji keyboard.
I'm going to have to look quickly just now because I want to know. Because I think
you can, but I don't know how to do it on a laptop, traditional PC. But you can definitely do it on your the keyboard shortcuts on your Mac.
Yeah.
So
I don't think you can do it on desktop on a PC, and I think that's one of the things that I've always, because I just can't be bothered to do it on a mobile, to write my post on a mobile phone. I can't be asked.
Oh, I don't do anything on a mobile.
No. So I wonder if those people who are doing all those nice emojis are using Macs. Maybe that's a good reason to get a Mac.
I honestly think in one of my live classes, I think we tested this out, and I think you can do it on a desktop. But I don't know where to find it for you. Sorry, but maybe we could find and put it in the comments for people.
If anyone's watching that can fill us in on how we can do emojis on our posts in desktop, then let me know.
They're fine too.
Okay, cool. So you touched there on something that you shouldn't do in terms of great big blocks of text, and I think that's really interesting. Is there anything else that you think is kind of a no-go, or a sort of, and obviously as well we talked at the beginning about sort of providing value up front and not selling, and those kind of sort of fairly, I think now hopefully more sort of common understandings of how you should do stuff. Is there anything else that's like not a good idea that you shouldn't do when you're creating LinkedIn posts, do you think?
Yeah, so I don't think you should do more than 1 post in a day. I don't think that LinkedIn favors that. So, and it's hard sometimes if this is your one social media platform where you connect and interact with your audience and your clients, and something new comes out later that day, you're like, oh, I really wanted to post about that. But it's recommended not to post more than once a day. Of course, there's always exceptions.
Is that recommended by LinkedIn not to post more than once a day, or?
So I'm connected with lots of other people who work in the LinkedIn training space, and I read and absorb information all the time. And I try out these things for myself as well, and I don't think it's the best idea to do it. Also, when you tag a whole bunch of people in your post and it's not really related to them, that's not good form.
Yeah, it's a bit spammy, isn't it?
It's a bit spammy. If someone's doing that to you, you can untag yourself from their posts.
Yes,
which is handy.
Yeah.
And then, you and I know not to send people sales messages as soon as we've connected with somebody on LinkedIn. But actually, the majority of people that I work with, that is one of their biggest issues with LinkedIn, is someone sending them a connection request and then literally sending them through a sales message. And, I would say 90% of the people I work with, that is one of their bugbears about LinkedIn, what puts them off LinkedIn. So too many people are still doing it. So
and I suppose, it has to be repeated over and over until hopefully one day it stops. But I mean, it's exactly the same thing you were saying before about turning up at a networking meeting and then thrusting your business card into somebody's face and telling them that they need to buy something off you immediately. It's just not the way we do things, is it?
No.
Yes, and okay, that's great. And I think you're right about the tagging thing. I try and be really sparse with tagging, and it's really just if I've either referenced something that I know someone is connected to, or if I know that they directly have a view on it. Like the other day, I asked for we were talking about headlines for posts, and I tagged a couple of copywriters because I felt a little bit out of my depth on that subject, and so that's kind of where I use those kind of tags. But you're right, some people will just tag about 18 other people just so they can try and get some traction into their post, and that's frustrating, I think, isn't it? And I think the once a day thing is also interesting. What I've noticed about the way that LinkedIn delivers content is that it's a bit of a slow drip. It's not like Twitter where you kind of like everyone sees it in the first 5 minutes and then it's gone. I found certainly with videos that you can have people come in and watching them the next day, 2 days later, even 3 days later, and it kind of it dribbles in. Possibly that's because people aren't on LinkedIn all the time, but however the algorithm works, content is definitely being shown 2 or 3 days afterwards, and I wonder, I suppose, about whether if you published 2, 3, 4, 5 videos in a week, that they would get a bit jumbled up and people would start watching them in the wrong order, or kind of thinking they'd seen something when they hadn't, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I have to say that for a lot of the people in my network who end up being clients or customers, they might only look in at LinkedIn maybe twice a week. So posts for me, once they start to get engagement with them, I will still get comments on a post that's 5 days old. And then you think, oh, you got a notification. You think, oh, great, that's someone's commenting on the post that I put out there an hour ago. And you go in and you go, oh, no, that's not. That's the one from 5 days ago.
Right.
And also, I've got about 4,000 people in my network, but a lot of my contacts maybe only have a couple of hundred people. And the number of people who actually post anything on LinkedIn is really quite small. So one of my friends, he's got quite an important job, and he said, Louise, when I go to LinkedIn, all I see is you in my news feed because I don't really have very many connections.
Right. So you have to meter that a little bit. Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, am I spamming you? And he's like, no, it's just that I literally don't really have any connections. So I just see you on the pages that I follow. So it's funny.
And I think as well, it's probably better to have, because I've sometimes been to somebody's feed to check a post that they had and found that they've actually been posting every day or twice a day, and that they've got no engagement on any of their posts. And I think it's probably much better to have one good post a week that people really, really connect with, rather than having 10 posts that people are just kind of passing by. And it just, probably the same amount of energy and effort, isn't it? It's just that you need to, focus it into one thing that works.
But also, a lot of the people who are putting out daily posts because they think this is the way to win business, and you look at the content of that post and you think, there's nothing in that post that makes me even know what you do, never mind want to reach out and work with you. So think about the strategy behind why are you posting this? Are you posting it because you're trying to teach people about a new way of putting your videos on YouTube because you've got space for a couple of new YouTube clients? Or why are you actually posting it? Or if you're just talking about something for the sake of it, you're kind of wasting your opportunity here to really market your business, I think.
Yeah. Okay. And actually, that leads really nicely into the next question that I had. Actually, so do you think we should have an objective when we set out to do some content? Now, it's do you think, I mean, sometimes an end goal can be quite a long way further down the line. In fact, it should be, because otherwise, if you're looking at those short-term goals, you're kind of doing what we were just saying not to do. But what do you think, your objective should be, or what different types of objectives could you have when you're creating content for LinkedIn?
Yeah, I think that it's interesting, because earlier on a different social media platform, someone was saying, I don't have the money to build a website right now, so I'm just going to build a Facebook page. And I was like, well, social media is actually about marketing and raising awareness of what you do, whereas your services and products should really be getting sold, if you're an online business, on your website. So there's different aspects to this, but raising awareness of what you do by providing these valuable pieces of content that make people want to go to your profile, click on your profile and find out more about you. And then they can see, oh, well, okay, so Louise does this, that, and the other. Well, maybe I'll connect with her. And then, so maybe they've been in my network for a few weeks and they've seen that I'm putting out valuable content. And then they go, do you know what? We actually need somebody to come in and train our team on how to use LinkedIn. So I'm going to reach out and connect with Louise. And that is literally how my business works, David. It's,
Right.
It's relationship building. It's providing value. Now I do a bit of body involved too. Like, I put out a post on Sunday night about homeschooling 3 kids while trying to run a business from home, and the amount of time I spend working out what the kids are going to be doing on Monday morning. And the engagement on that post just went through the roof, because there's so many people in the same boat. There's nothing on there about how to improve your LinkedIn profile. So there's also, again, go back to the mindset. I'm at a business networking event. I'm not just going to talk about business. I am going to ask people, oh, hi, David, how are you? How is that? How is your dog after that? Blah, blah, blah. You do have a bit of personality as well, because people buy from people at the end of the day too, don't they?
Exactly that. And I think as well that, I again, it's something that I was saying just, last week in a webinar, I think that, if you're able to communicate some of your character, if you're able to identify or differentiate yourself from, the next person because you like Star Trek, or because you cycle a lot, or because, if you reveal some of those things about yourself, the fact that you live at home and you've got 3 kids and they're all driving you up the wall, those kind of things are the things that make us individual.
People know that I drink from these, like, I'm obsessed with my Emma Bridgewater mugs, and people now know that. And I also quite often am wearing a stripy top. It's just my
Well, I've got Hungry Caterpillar mugs.
I like it.
But so like you say, when people buy, we always say people buy from people, and but if you've got a choice of 5 different coaches online, or 3 different kind of marketing analysts, or whoever it is you're working with, and a bit more about the personality of that one or that one or that one, then you can make a decision based on that. And actually what that means as well is that you land up working with people who get you and who are like you. And that just makes for a much healthier working environment and a much healthier kind of client relationship as well, doesn't it?
Definitely. And I think it kind of goes full circle around to, who's in, why do you enjoy being on LinkedIn? I mean, the network I've built on LinkedIn are people that I actually enjoy interacting with and engaging with. I could have a network. I could sit and send connection requests every day until I have a network of 30,000 people, but I'm not sure that I would enjoy going onto LinkedIn as much and seeing the posts from the people if I didn't really know who they were, because there's so many of them. Whereas I know 4,000 is a lot of people anyway. But I tend to see the posts from the people that I've engaged with before, and I'm interested in what they're saying, and it's a nice network, and I enjoy spending time on there, as well as it actually being like what my whole business is built around.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what I'd really like to see across any of the social networks actually is just some way of kind of maybe grouping people or filtering people, or just kind of having a look at being able to build a list of your top contacts that you can check in on that feed, or that, or potential clients. And I know with LinkedIn, you can do that with Sales Navigator and things like that. But I just think it's really missing from from social networks. I actually had got to the point with Twitter where I set up an entirely new account for myself just because I was following about 2,000 people. And every time I went to the feed, it just meant nothing. And I was just looking at a whole bunch of guff, you know. And so I'd set up a new account and I just follow like 10 or 15 people on it because anyone I follow on that account, which is like my personal account, is just people that I want to follow. It's not, I don't follow anyone else. And I'm getting so much more value from Twitter now because of it, you know.
But then do you not use Twitter lists?
I don't use Twitter a lot, to be honest,
Okay.
but yes, I you know, you've got to pick your network, haven't you? I think it's like I find myself spread too thin a little bit, but yes, I used to use Twitter lists. I haven't used them.
Yeah, I have Twitter lists. I never use them. I find Twitter really, I have a love-hate relationship with Twitter. I love Twitter, but at the moment you can only spend so long on there before you start to get annoyed. You have to leave.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Brilliant. Okay, so we talked about the type of content, the kind of the approach, the way you know, the way you can craft it, and you know, and then some of the objectives that you might have as well. Is there anything else that you want to kind of add in objectives in terms of what you're trying to achieve? Obviously, you want to kind of create a kind of a human connection. Sometimes I talk about the different stages of the funnel or the relationship is probably a nicer way of putting it. So, you know, it's very easy to create content. Well, not very easy, but some people focus a lot of their attention around creating content that is kind of funny and drives a lot of traffic, which is great for the kind of top of the funnel. But I always say that it's valuable to have some content that's maybe a bit more detailed, a bit more niche, and that speaks to maybe somebody who's been in your kind of circle for a while and actually is maybe more advanced or moving down that kind of pathway towards working with you, and they need something a little bit more detailed. Is that something that you kind of focus on or advise when you're talking to people about creating kind of like more middle of funnel content?
Yes, I mean, I think that, like I said, you have your different kinds of content that you put out, absolutely. But for me and for my clients and how I teach them how to use this is really to get people interested enough that they actually then reach out to you in the messenger. And that is where, honestly, all of my business happens on LinkedIn. And that's a side that other people don't see any of that, obviously. But putting out enough content to the point where someone goes, this is something I'm interested in, and answering the questions that people have. And like a client I was working with this week, who works in the legal industry, and they, you know, different types of clients have to be careful what they're putting out. Obviously, in professional services, you have to be careful what you're putting out, and some people aren't allowed to market themselves and all that kind of stuff. And if you're not really sure what content your audience are interested in, then ask them what they'd like to know more about. You could say, I'm going to do a series about taxes is always a really easy one for me to give as an example, but, you know, coming up to the end of the tax year, you know, what do you need to know about? You could do the basics, and then you could say, okay, so people seemed interested in that. Would you be interested if I did like a weekly video on, you know, how to go deeper with your accounts or something like that? And people will tell you pretty fast whether they're interested or not. And it's not like when you go and ask your mum what she thinks and she says, yes, that'd be lovely, go and do that. You'll know pretty quickly if people are interested in it or not. And then they start to, you know, tag other people and say, well, actually, I think you'd be. So I get people who comment on my posts. They don't comment anything. They literally tag somebody else and say, did you see this? And I respond to every comment, and sometimes they don't. Like, there's a big corporate, and 3 or 4 of the senior team were commenting on one of my posts about something, and I was kind of going, "Hi, can I help you guys?" And they were literally just having a conversation between themselves and my comments, which is a bit weird. But then they sent me a private message and explained what was it all about. And, you know, we're after lockdown, I'm probably going to go in and work with their team in person. So there's a lot of people reading your stuff and your content who don't want to leave any public comments, and then will send you a private message. And that's where the real things happen on LinkedIn.
I always remember, do you know Dan Knowlton from Knowlton? Yeah, one of his stories is always about how a major client, you know, so a big brand name, got in touch with them. And apparently they've been lurking, watching his content for about 2 or 3 years, and it suddenly popped up, you know. And it's really interesting to think about who's watching and who's out there, sort of thing, even if they're not engaging necessarily.
And some of those bigger clients would be horrified if you mentioned that in your content as well. So I've got a couple of really globally recognized names that I'm going to be working with, but I can't tell anybody about that because I know that that's the other thing. You've got to be professional, and if someone picks you to work with them because they know you're going to be more discreet and more professional about it, then they're more inclined to want to work with you further. So there's a lot of things you kind of you just go, give vague examples of things rather than specific. But there's a lot of lurkers out there keeping a watch.
Okay, great. Well, that's brilliant. I mean, we've covered loads of ground there, and I think people will probably be starting to eye up their gin and tonic soon. So we'll kind of bring it to a sort of a close. Is there anything you can see kind of looking forward into the future? Can you see any kind of direction that LinkedIn's kind of trying to take now? Is there kind of any tips you can give us for what we might do over the next kind of 3 or 6 months? I suppose as well, given the situation globally, is there a kind of maybe a little pivot we can do, or something we can put in place for the next few months to kind of get some success on LinkedIn?
Yes, I think that really before you even get near what kind of content you're putting out and your strategy on LinkedIn, take the time to go through your LinkedIn profile, because when you make a comment about something or you write a post about something and someone goes, oh, I'm interested in that, and they click through to your profile, if you haven't actually written or optimized your profile, it's a dead end for that person. So spend time writing your profile out properly, connect with you. But LinkedIn's got a few more surprises coming for us, to be honest, because they seem to be spending quite a bit of time and effort in bringing out new features, and it's really interesting, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what's coming next. It's definitely it's got huge momentum. There's 690 million users, I think they announced a couple of weeks ago, and they said that traffic and engagement is up 26% on LinkedIn during lockdown, which is
in the last few weeks. So
if you're not providing content and engaging with your network at the moment, then maybe put it on your to-do list for getting involved.
I think that's going to increase as well, because I don't think, I don't see that the situation is going to change that much actually over the next 6 or 12 months. So I think this will continue to grow, and actually, you want to kind of, and then the other thing that will happen is that people discover that it works, or they like it, or that it's useful, and they'll stay there. So that there'll be a step up, won't there? And I think then beyond that, it's good to get a footing now and to get in and get involved with it now if you haven't already.
Definitely.
And if you're not sure what to do, then create a poll and ask some people, and I'll tell you. Brilliant. Okay, well, Louise, thank you so much for your time and your insight into that. I've learned a couple of things today, and it's been really useful, interesting chatting to you. Where can people find you if they want to come and have a chat or connect with you?
Connect with me on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/Louise Brogan. I'd be delighted. And send me a note to tell me that you watched the video. That'd be great.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, that's all for today. Like I say, I don't know about you, but I've got a gin and tonic with my name on it coming up.
I've got pink fizz in the fridge because I'm celebrating today.
You've got fizz in the fridge. Oh, yeah, because tell us about your award nomination. Go on.
Yeah, so I entered for the UK Small Awards, which is such a funny name, but it's the Small Business Awards for the UK, and I've been shortlisted for Self-Employed Business Person of the Year, potentially with a black tie dinner in September, fingers crossed, in London. So I got that email this morning, and I'm over the moon. So I've got pink fizz in the fridge.
Brilliant. So yeah, congratulations for that, and enjoy your fizz. Great. Okay. So we'll wrap it up there. Like I said at the beginning, we've got Amy Woods on next week talking about repurposing content from Content 10X. That should be good. Amy, do you, Louise?
I do know Amy. Amy and I are, we've met a couple of times at Upreneur, and I think she's fantastic. She's been in my podcast and I've been in her podcast.
Okay, great. I might have to go and check those out. She'll be on next Friday at the same time, 4:00. Like I said, if you want to get email notifications or just stay in the loop with what we're doing, it's remotevideoteam.com/subscribe. And I should make a recording of this available on YouTube at some point as well. So if you've missed a bit of it, or if you want to go and catch up with it at some point, hop on over to the website and subscribe, and you'll get a notification when that's live. But for now, all that remains is to say thank you again to Louise, and have a lovely weekend, and we'll catch you again next week. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye.